NAFI would like to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, Sporties. If you are a NAFI member, be sure to log on to the membership side of the NAFI website, nafinet.org, and follow the link to the Sporties discount page exclusively for NAFI members. Thank you again to Sporties for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the More Right Rudder podcast wherever you get your podcasts to be sure you never miss an episode. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the More Right Rudder podcast. My name is Sarah Stout. I am the Program Development Manager here at NAFI. Joining me for this episode today is Bret Koebbe, the Senior Vice President at Sporties. He leads the online course and video production teams. Additionally, he's an ATP, II, and MEI, and has been recognized as a NAFI Master CFI. Bret is also a captain for a corporate flight department, flying a Cessna Citation, and enjoys recreational flying in a Piper Aztec. Thanks for joining us today, Bret.
Good to be here.
So our topic today is kind of Sporty's bread and butter, how to incorporate an online ground school with your learners. So first, let's talk about kind of the core concept. What even is an online ground school? Are we talking how to pass the knowledge test, more in depth than that?
Yeah, let's kind of rewind a little bit to where we are today by looking at the past a little bit. And technology has allowed us to deliver flight training, ground school training, test prep in a much better way than even 20 years ago. So I like to look back and reference the days of the textbooks where we memorized test prep questions and highlighted the right answer. And many times we memorized the exact takeoff or landing distance because the FAA published the questions ahead of time. And so it wasn't the best way to necessarily learn the material, but that's what we did back then. And even predating that, we had weekend ground schools, right, where students would get together, and we did this here at Sporties at the Claremont County Airport, basically a cram session for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, instructor-led training, come out of that program ready to take the knowledge test and get over that hurdle. And what's really evolved over the years is we've gone from this test prep focus of just getting that part of the way, but going to a more comprehensive online ground school program. And we still use the term ground school because we are covering a lot of the ground training, but it also is really much more than that. We're also preparing for our flight lessons. And I think that's equally as important, if not more important, that students are learning ahead of time on their own schedule how to start the airplane, how to complete the pre-flight checklist. As we get more advanced, we're learning and seeing how to operate the airplane through power off stalls, steep turns, that kind of thing. And with the prices today for a flight lesson, a student being able to go into their computer, their iPad app ahead of time, review that content. Again, not only learn the ground topics, the aerodynamics, the airspace, the sectional charts, but also learn the flight topics. It really just makes for a much more efficient training experience, better for the student and better for the instructor.
Yeah, the technology has really allowed really all learning, teaching and learning to come a long way, but especially flight training has benefited greatly. So as instructors, if we were going to be recommending a ground school to a learner, of course, these people coming in, who want to become sport pilots or private pilots, a lot of times that flight instructor is the first contact they've ever had with someone, on the other side of the airport fence. And so what characteristics or qualities should a flight instructor be looking for in a product to pass along to their learner and say, this is a good product because it has these characteristics?
And a lot of times it's out of the instructor's control. A lot of schools we talk to and work with have their standardized study programs, whether it's Sporties or a King program. But a lot of instructors are out there on their own, and they want to take advantage of these materials that might not be supplied to them by the flight school. And so I treat this like any other kind of consumer research product, whether you're buying a headset or a Cessna 172 or an airplane for the first time. Do your research and test the market, right? Go out there and see what's available, read reviews, talk to other students, talk to other flight instructors, see what they're using to learn the pros and cons. Of course, plenty of message boards on there. You're going to find the endless debate of what's the best ground school. And each has a different purpose also. And I think that's an important point. What is this product trying to do for you? Are you just looking for it to help your student pass a knowledge test? Plenty of great options out there. Or are you looking for a more comprehensive program, like I initially mentioned, that it's going to cover the ground training, going to cover the flight preparation as well as the test prep? And I encourage a lot of instructors out there looking to go onto the websites of the various products. For example, Sporties, we want to make this very easy for you with our primary products, the Learn to Fly private pilot course, instrument rating course, and commercial courses. We actually offer all three of these courses free to flight instructors to check out. So we want to eliminate that barrier for you to not have to just use a demo mode or a preview mode. But if you go to sporties.com/CFI, that's our flight instructor portal. We'll talk more about that later on. Instructors can register for a free account and give our courses a test drive. You'll be able to see all the video content, see all the ground school content, test prep, all that, which will help you evaluate in advance if that's the right product for your student.
Okay, great. That sounds like a very useful tool, as well as just overall general great guidance on picking a ground school. So with these, more comprehensive ground school products than, we had, even 10 years ago, much less, 20, like you were referencing, there's some pretty significant benefits to our learners. So what would be some of the benefits of picking, one of these more comprehensive ground study programs over a strictly, say, test prep type product?
Sure. And I'll use my experience. So I've been instructing since 2002. And in those days, my students were using VHS tapes and DVDs were just coming out then. Many, many listeners may think of those like cassette tapes or records, but physical media that we put in the TV and watched ahead of time. And so the challenge there at that point, when the technology was evolving, it took work for your student to go home and put that VHS tape in or DVD, right? They had to get in front of their TV. Many houses may have only had one TV that had access to that kind of technology. So you're letting your kids or your other family members to do that. So I can tell you the students bought the courses then, but they may not have always used them. And there was no way to know if they did or not, right? We're assigning them homework in between lessons, prerequisites before each lesson. And I could tell the night and day though, because every student said they did, of course, right? Yeah, I did my homework. I, read the
We all did.
airplane flying handbook. Exactly. I watched the VHS tape, but we had no way to know. But when you got in the airplane, the students that watched their lesson ahead of time, whether it was slow flight, cross country planning, whatever it might be, it was evident. They were prepared. They saw the flight deck ahead of time. They knew what to expect. They knew where the switches were, which meant a lot less time on the fundamentals and more time focusing on refining the maneuver and getting the ACS standards more quickly. So how does that benefit the students? So let's fast forward to today now, where our courses are delivered online on a computer, iPad app, iPhone app, Android, smart TV, you name the platform. There's no excuse not to be able to leave the airport and find some screen somewhere that our system does not work on. So the barriers first off are gone for the student to actually consume the content and be prepared. We make it more enjoyable now too. HD video makes the students want to get in there and learn. Not like the old days of the small cameras and hard to read screens. Everything's brought to life with 3D animations and 4K video quality. So the students want to get in there and access this content. So that challenge is kind of gone. Once the student enrolls in the course, they want to get in there because they know the benefits of it. Now, again, same benefits apply as they did 20 years ago. The students are better prepared for the lesson. But our cost of a private certificate now is roughly what, $15,000. I think that's our average at our flight school here in Cincinnati. The cost of a course, any one of these courses is about $300. They really haven't changed much over the last 20 years. So the value proposition is huge for the student that they can spend their time away from the airport learning the material, makes their time at the airport with the instructor that much more efficient, more valuable. And what we see, and we use these programs at our flight school here, the students get through their courseware so much more efficiently. So we're not getting the 70 or 80 hour private pilots, but we're more in the 50 or 60 hour range below the average. And the students are better prepared also. We're not just meeting the bare minimums. They're getting much more content and training above and beyond the minimums due to their own self-study efforts.
Right. And time is money, right? And especially now, like you say, flight time, even in a, basic 172 or Archer or, a DA-40, something along those lines, it's significantly more than it used to be. So the fact that ground schools have stayed fairly level and increased that value proposition so much, because these programs are really rich. I've worked with a number of them, and they offer so much. So one other benefit we should touch on is that these programs can issue knowledge test endorsements for self-study. So let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah, excellent point. So we want to make this a comprehensive solution for students, and that's our goal here at Sporties. And while we meet the ACS standards, our goal is to go above and beyond that and really supply all the education to make well-rounded pilots, not just test takers or check ride passers. So a big part of that is the ground and flight training built into the lessons are also preparing the students for the knowledge test. And the accelerated program, some of them recommend you come in with a knowledge test taken ahead of time. And you have to work that way if you're going to go through your whole course of programs in 12 months. But for the average student who's doing it on their own time, 2-3 days a week of flight lessons, they can go up through solo, complete their learn to fly course, video ground lessons, and then post solo is really when we start to suggest they prepare for the knowledge test. And you'll find lots of knowledge test preparation tools in our program to study categories of questions. But each individual question and answer includes an explanation also for the students. So we really want to go above and beyond that rote memorization, but have them learn the material. So even if they don't know the concept ahead of time, because we know there's some quirky FAA test prep questions on there, there are going to be some gotchas. They're going to read explanations written by our instructors to understand the why of the question, not just know an answer and move on. And again, that's really going to make them a better pilot after the check ride. So after they complete the course, watch all the video training, roughly 16 hours in the private pilot certificate. They then can study the test prep questions. We recommend they go through all the categories, which are aligned with the ACS to keep that consistent. They can then take practice tests to gauge their readiness for the actual test. We look for them to get 80% test prep scores as a bare minimum. Really want to see 90s if they can, but 80s are minimum. And at that point, whether it's Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock or Sunday night at 2 a.m., they can then request their endorsement once they meet those requirements and get a endorsement to take the knowledge test signed off by our chief flight instructor here at Sporty that they can then take to the test facility. And what that really does is relieves that responsibility and time from the instructor. So the instructor is not spending time at the airport doing one-on-one ground lessons, reviewing that kind of basic elementary knowledge concepts that the student can learn on their own. Big part there also to point out, it's not like the instructor is completely removed either from this process. The CFI portal I mentioned before that all flight instructors can access for free at sportys.com/CFI. Instructors can link up their account to their student's account so they can monitor their lesson progress to make sure not only that they're meeting the prerequisites in terms of the next lesson, but they can also see their ground or their test prep progress as well. So they can see how they're scoring on knowledge tests, see their weaker areas, see their stronger areas, because it's inevitable. Some students will need some additional help along the way to get through the knowledge test. And that allows the instructor, again, in the interest of efficiency, they know where the student's at, they know their weaker areas, they know their stronger areas. So when the ground lessons are needed to prepare for the knowledge test, they can really use that time efficiently and focus on the areas that the student is most efficient in.
Yeah, and I've even had learners who, we had kind of identified that weak area, and we've used the customizable quizzing and testing tools within their electronic ground school. It happened to be Sporties at the time as well. And then they were really able to, hammer on just that area. Again, not our goal was to memorize, but they were able to study that on their own and kind of come back and like flag questions that they didn't understand or write down their questions. So when we got together, we kind of had some structure on what we were going to look at. And then that gave them a chance to, since they weren't doing a timed test, it was just focused on that subject area. If they had a question, they could go back and look at the reference, or they could just flag it or write it down. It really offered a lot of flexible learning options for identifying those weak areas and strengthening them, and also, helping us focus on that instead of spending unnecessary time on areas where they were already pretty strong and were ready to pass, those portions of the knowledge test.
The knowledge test there. So I pay close attention to what the FAA puts out. There's not a whole lot of guidance on what's being new added to the test. A couple of years ago, they used to put out the what's new in airman testing, where they would put out broad subject areas. They discontinued that, and now they have a document called the Airman Testing Community Advisory, which has very, very, very generalized updates. And I haven't seen many for the private or instrument in the last couple of years. I've seen mainly updates to the mechanics test. So it's tough for students to know. We've gone full spectrum and the pendulum of FAA publishes all test questions and answers to now when they have new questions, we really don't know. They go back to say, hey, reference the ACS. And that's fine. It's a good guidance. So we really rely on a lot of community feedback and talk to students. What are you seeing on the test, right? What kind of general subject areas? And the positive thing there that we are seeing is the questions are becoming more practical. A lot of new content related to stabilized approaches, wake turbulence, aerodynamics as it relates to actually flying the airplane, but not these abstract concepts that aren't going to affect the average pilot. So if there's any silver lining to that, the concepts that are being tested upon are a lot more practical. And that's where, again, going through a full comprehensive ground or flight training program, understanding the core theory, even if you've never seen that question before on the test or in your sample test ahead of time, you're going to feel comfortable knowing the answer to the question because you know the foundational knowledge to get you through that.
Yeah, it does highlight that need to understand the why and really comprehensively, get to that correlation level and how all the dots connect. 'Cause, yeah, I remember, back when I was getting my CFI, just a couple of years after you did yours, according to your timeline, we were just told, okay, here's the question bank for the FOI. It's a skinny little book. Go memorize it and pass your test. The FIA was a bit heftier, but certainly, yeah, there was an element of just read it, get it in your brain, spit it out on the test, get it done.
Yep.
So our learners are definitely better off with the concept of you actually need to know the material to pass the test, not just that, oh, okay, I recognize this question with this, therefore the answers,
Exactly.
this. And all right, as we get into our last few minutes here, talk to us a little bit more about your CFI portal here. So I've been in there myself. It's a pretty cool tool. So tell us all the ins and outs and how we can benefit from it.
Sure. I'd like to take credit for the product, but it honestly came from instructor feedback, and that's how at Sporty, that's our philosophy. We listen to pilots, whether they have 10,000 hours or 10 hours. And that's how we make our products better and find the next, gadget or training piece that a pilot needs. We listen to what pilots have to say. And we heard this from instructors. We want to see what our students are doing in their courseware. We want to be able to follow along to help them. It is self-study, but we're their mentor also. And so that was the original core thought behind the CFI portal and flight instructor portal, was a way for CFIs to gain access and track their students' progress. And beyond that, it's grown to so much more now. It's also a flight school monitoring system. So flight schools can register with us, a chief flight instructor or multiple chief instructors or managers, whomever they might be, that can then also monitor the progress of their instructors. So it allows kind of this global view of their entire flight school on a top to bottom level, from management all the way down to individual instructors, and they can see all the students' progress in their school, which is very important, for 141 schools especially, to maintain those high levels of pass rates and completion status. But also, there's a lot of other benefits there besides that. Sporty's developed a flight instructor refresher course several years ago, in my opinion, the best one out there. And instructors get completely free access to that. So every 2 years, you have to do your FERC. Come to sportys.com/CFI, and you can do it there completely free. Full database of FAA handbooks, so quick references to all the teaching tools you need. Sporty's ground lesson guides, we used to charge for those. Now we make this available free to instructors as reference for those that do teach ground lessons. And also a product we collaborated on with NAFI, which is the instructor's guide to endorsements. So your alternative there is the advisory circular, of course, that has all the endorsements. And it's good, but we thought we could do better, and we worked with NAFI to produce this great PDF in one location, so you can get that also in our flight instructor portal. And as I mentioned earlier on, once you do register, you'll have complete, free, and full access to the private instrument and commercial courses for you to check out, or just use it to maintain your own proficiency, especially as it relates to instrument flying.
Right. The instrument thing is a good one, because I was using that as a refresher for myself, because I wasn't flying instrument a whole heck of a lot. Especially in the past couple of years, instructing was kind of more of a side gig for me than my core job. So being able to stay current, especially things in the instrument world, change so fast with the advent of all these new technologies that are out there and next gen and all these things coming online. Yeah, with endorsements, we all love 6165.
All right.
So anything that helps with that is fantastic. All right, Bret, any parting thoughts for us as we wrap up here?
No, thanks for your time today. And I'll mention also, for anybody related to flight school or flight school management, that we love to partner with flight schools to help you make Sporty's courses part of your curriculum. Again, that has come organically from flight schools reaching out that want to standardize things. And again, kind of the benefit line, that's another great point is that using a course like this standardizes things at your school. You don't have instructors teaching it many different ways. The concepts we integrate in our curriculum and courseware are tried and true from our flight school here, Part 141, approved in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so it's a great way to kind of bring that to life. And many of the bigger schools have recognized that, like our partnership with Lift Academy in Indianapolis, that uses the Sporty's courses as the foundation for their program, training hundreds and hundreds of pilots every year across the country. And flight schools can partner with us also, that they can actually sell our courses through their programs, whether it's individual courses to students, creating enrollment kits, and we do offer a significant discount. So it's a great way for flight schools to make money on selling our products as well and making their flight school better and the student training experience consistent across the board.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing all of that today, Bret. NAFI certainly appreciates all that Sporties does for the industry and your ongoing and significant support of NAFI ourselves. It makes a big difference in our ability to get content out there and advocate for flight instructors as we do. So thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you down at NAFI Summit coming up later this year.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Great. We will as well. And then encourage any instructor in the area to come visit us and we can talk more.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the More Right Rudder podcast. If you're a NAFI member, don't forget to log on to the membership side of the NAFI website and follow the link to the exclusive Sporties discount page just for NAFI members. If you're not a NAFI member yet, remember you can save $10 on your membership by using the code POD49, POD49 at checkout on the NAFI website when you join. It also works for renewals, so existing members don't forget to use that same code, POD49, to save $10 on your renewal membership.